Hello, and welcome to the Total Mental Performance Podcast, the one and only mindset podcast dedicated to helping fitness entrepreneurs and coaches master their mindset, giving you insider access to industry leaders around their psychology, their campfire stories, and the mindset required to be successful in this business. I'm your host, Kieran O'Neill, mental performance coach and founder of Total Mental Performance, the world's fastest growing specialist mindset service dedicated to the fitness industry. So, without further ado, let's lean in and listen.
So today we have Barndon Hepburn. Barndon is a good friend of mine, TMP client, and he's got a very, very interesting background. Started out as a Team GB kayaker, worked his way through that, transitioned into coaching. He's now a bodybuilder. And I'm going to be honest, I work with many, many, many coaches, and this guy's dedication to detail is genuinely world-class. He's really, really disciplined. And he's had some really interesting challenges around anxiety, around mindset, around moving away from the UK over to Dubai. So I wanted to get him on to share his experience. So Barndon, mate, thank you so much for coming on.
No, honestly, thank you. And thank you for everything. Everything you've done so far. It's worked, so it's cool.
Yeah, it's great to have you on, man. So if you could describe in one line what it is you do and who you coach, how would you describe it?
Oh, yeah. So I'm an online fitness coach, and I help ladies and gents get in beach body shape and now build an unstoppable mindset.
Fuck yeah. Solid. Solid.
Yeah.
Laser focused. So how did you get into coaching? How did you start out?
So yeah, initially, like you said, like I was kayaking at a high level. And I did that for, I don't know, like 6-7 years. And I think I was competing for GB for like 5 or 6 years, something along those lines. And very similar to your background, right? Like boxing background. And I started to kind of get into 18 to like 20 years old. I started to fall out of love for it. And I felt like I lost my identity. And I know that you can relate to this because we spoke about it, the same sort of thing. Like, and I thought kayaking was my thing. And over time, I just fell out in love with it. And I had to start going to the gym because I was going into the men's category for kayaking. And then I started going to the gym and I thought, okay, like this is quite cool. I'm starting to see changes in my body and things like that. And then I started working part-time at Hollister kind of when I was 17, and I was there for 2 years, and everyone there was in good shape sort of thing at that time period. So I was like, I'll go to the gym a bit more. And ever since then, I never really looked back. I just made a natural transition. And I honestly started coaching for a really selfish reason. Loads of people are like, oh, I want to help people and things like that. I don't know if you can swear on this podcast. Are we good?
Far away, mate. Far away.
I just generally didn't give a shit. Like, if I'm completely honest, I didn't give a shit about honestly helping anyone to start off with. I wanted to be like, right, I need to earn some money and I need to train and get my identity back. And that was it really. And then over time, I was like, I actually like coaching. And we are where we are today, 5-6 years later, pretty much.
Wow. And run me through that. You talked about identity, because we talk about a lot about identity at TMP, and you've seen a huge shift across various different. So for those coaches that were athletes and made a similar identity shift, what would you say the identity was before and then after? And what was the hardest part of that change?
I think when you're kind of like maybe young, you just it's maybe not so much yourself, but everyone knows you as that individual. Oh, like you do kayaking, right? Or you box and things like that. Or you don't get invited out because you're kayaking or you're boxing or something along those lines. And the shift was really hard. Like, it was a weird transitional period. And it was 2 years. That was probably the 2 years where I felt quite lost and like didn't know where to go. I attempted to go to university in the States, didn't work out. Felt like everything I did just didn't work. And I just thought I'd just do a PT course and just fell into it. And then obviously when you join the fitness industry, like we're bombarded by fitness nowadays. It's this massive thing online, right? Like it's huge. Like Instagram is pretty much fitness and tattoos and pretty pictures sort of thing. So it's like somehow you have to go from like this kind of like, I've never lifted a weight and this beginner trainer, and you're comparing yourself to potentially trainers and athletes at a pinnacle level. And you feel dragged down certain routes. Where should I go? And all this sort of stuff. Like do I need to do a bit of this sort of training? Do I need to do this and things like that? And then you just lose yourself. And that's definitely how I felt. And that was one of the reasons I started working with you, to be honest.
Let's run through that. So you're on the gym floor PT, then you move to online. I'm running through the transition, the identity, and the mindset shift between that, because they're very, very different. Something that I think a lot of coaches that decide they want to go online versus just being offline is they forget is they're used to being in an environment surrounded by people. So they've got lots of different energies, lots of people for connection. But then when they shift, it's a completely different business. It's a completely different mindset. So then feelings of isolation, feelings of loneliness, anxiety, overwhelm, it's like a completely different ballgame. So run me through some of those experiences that you had transitioning from the gym floor to going online.
Yeah, 100%. Like you said, like when you're in a gym floor environment, you almost produce a little, like, the members in your gym, the trainers, and you talk to the trainers every day, and you have a bit of fun and a giggle with them, and like you get kind of sucked into a little family, really, because like there's probably going to be a couple thousand members at your gym and things like that, and you pretty much know every single face that walks in, or you notice a newbie and things like that, and people know you, and you feel like a bit, oh, people know me sort of thing when I've been in there a year, and like they go, hi, and how are you? You almost feel accepted. And then when you make that transition, it's hard. It's really hard. Like you're spending, like me and you here, like we literally live just down the road from each other, but yet we're still doing a podcast on here because you spend so much time alone, like on laptops and things like that. And you're technically, when you go online, your job is social media. So you are maybe 10, 12 hours a day, you're potentially being bombarded by social media or comments and messages and things like that. And it does really get to you. It does really get to you. And it's like I think the hardest thing is just being on your own. I think that's the thing. And then being in your own thoughts is scary. And then obviously, like you say, like these own thoughts can lead to anxiety and burnout and feeling you're not good enough, not working hard enough. And honestly, like me and you, like, well, I know we can both say we still feel like that today. But actually, when you give yourself permission to, again, like you say all the time, is like give yourself downtime and time away, like that's your uptime and things like that. But it is a very, like, it's an isolating world, especially over the last 18 months. I think if you didn't know what loneliness felt like, we've all felt extreme loneliness over the last 18 months. With this COVID period, we've all felt different. Mental health has become on the radar a lot more over this last 18 months. And I think we're a lot more aware of it, and potentially you're more aware of yourself because you've spent more time in your own head. And I know that you would agree, like you challenge people to spend time on their own to get into their own thoughts, but also it's really important to have the right people in your network.
The balance. So
yeah.
You need to be able to have that piece of, there's a difference between loneliness and solitude. And solitude is, I am by myself, and you're enjoying that time alone. It's almost like recharge time. You can think strategically, you feel good, at very least in a reflective state. Whereas when you're in a lonely state, that's where you feel like you're lacking something, whether that's connection, another human being, conversation. And it's a really, really fine line. And it's really easy for us to over-rotate either way and isolate ourselves because we've got too much going on in our environment and too many people. And, when you're on the gym floor and you spend hours and hours and hours and you're fed up with people, by the end of that, you're craving that solitude. On the flip side, when you're alone all the time and you're just behind the laptop, and it's something I see time and time again, just people being stuck, check-ins, content. They forget to live a life. And it's a real fine line. But if you can find solitude versus loneliness, and there's a few factors that go into that, that's really the balance. That's the place you want to get to.
Yeah, of course, 100%. And like you said, it's little things that you can. It is little things that I think the biggest thing that I found, man, from what you've taught me and things like that, it's pinpointing that you're not broken. Like everyone feels like this, and especially when also as well, like you work with different individuals, you work with high-end business owners and things like that. And it's amazing how you say, well, they have exactly the same worries. They still worry that they're not good enough and they're not earning enough and things like that. And they could be earning silly money. And you're like, oh, I'd love to earn that. But I'm like, it's not about that. It's like we all still face the same little demons on our shoulder. And a lot of it comes down to it. It's like the little things for me, like, man, journaling, the biggest thing, 5 minutes every morning, just writing down what I'm grateful for, some affirmations and things like that. And just writing down how I feel. Like, how do I feel this morning? And things like that. And just going off that feeling. And I think the best one that you was like, we're never going to fix your anxiety. I think that was a really good thing. Like, I think anxiety is important to have as well, because it can be that thing that kind of drives you forward, and that anxious feel. We need that sometimes. But when you got to the point where, like, now I know it's this shape and I know what color it is and things like that. And I can see it coming, and I have the tools now to be like, fuck off, sort of thing. And that's literally it.
What's your, what tool for your anxiety? What tool do you use, or do you gravitate towards the most?
As in to kind of like, in a sense, get away from it, sort of thing.
To manage it.
Do you know what, man? It's little things. It's changed my environment quite quickly. So if I feel a bit anxious in this desk space, I'll just like, cool, I just need to get out. Or if I feel like procrastinating and the anxiety kicks in, I just need to be like, all right, I need to get out. I need to go to the pool. I need to go for a walk, whatever it is, change the scenery. And sometimes I need to be like, if I'm feeling like this, I'm actually going to take the rest of the day off. I've done what needs to be done. I've done like the major things today. I'm actually just going to take the day off, because if I force myself back into the situation, it's not going to be good. I need to just listen, have the self-awareness to be like, right, dude, just take some time out today. It's cool. And then not feel guilty for it. Because at the end of the day, like when you're a fitness coach, your job is kind of like, it's quite a simple concept. It's quite like your job is to self-develop a lot, spend a lot of time self-developing, learning, coaching, and training, and producing content. That's technically your job. That's it. So I think if you can break your job down into kind of 4 or 5 key areas and think, actually, like, I've only had to do these 3 tasks today, I'm like, cool, just chill for the rest of the day. Like everyone else works a 9 to 5. Why do you think you need to do 5 a.m. or straight away all the way through to midnight because you think you're a hustler? I'm like, it doesn't work like that.
And a lot of coaches listening to this are going to turn around and say, yeah, well, you know, I can't possibly take the time off. I'm too busy. I've got too much on. I'm worried that it's going to stop my productivity, that I'm not going to be able to hit the revenue numbers I want. What would you say to those coaches that instantly, them just hearing that, their backs have just come up and they've gone, no, you got to work harder, not less?
I would just challenge, like, if work smarter, not harder. That's all it comes down to. It's like things like that that's something where your mindset like needs to shift. I always said, who was it? Jeff Bezos, Amazon guy, right? He does 1 meeting a week, and that's his job now. He just makes 1 key decision. That's his job. And he's the most successful man in the world. If you start even listening to audiobooks and you listen to the most successful people in the world, they have a lot more downtime than you think. Because when you take downtime, that is when actually you start to think like, okay, cool. Like I'm getting ideas and I'm getting inspiration and things like that. And then it comes down to your time management. I'm like, if you think you're hustling the whole time, I'm like, you're probably just not working hard enough. Actually, like you're just wasting a lot of time scrolling through your phone, things like it takes you an hour to write a piece of content and things like that. But actually bringing in some kind of simple structure, I'm like, you probably only need to work 4 or 5 hours a day max at a polite level. That's it. But then a lot of this comes down to the stuff that you've taught me as well. It's like, actually, it's just like, I always come to self-awareness. And if you've got your backs up and things like that, and you get defensive, I'm like, oh, okay. So there's something underlying there, right? I'm like, so what's triggering that? Why do you think you're not good enough to take downtime?
Exactly that. And it's those fears and those insecurities that come up that are usually the driver of most behavior. Most of the world operates in protection because of the way that our bodies and our minds have been built. It's taken us, depending on who you believe, like hundreds of thousands to tens of thousands of years to develop and adapt into what we have today. So It's going to take some time to uncondition a lot of that. We're built for scarcity. We're not built for growth. We're built for not having enough food, not having enough water. So as a result, we have to hustle, 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 hustle. We think we have to hustle, hustle, hustle.
Yeah.
When actually, work, if we think about our production capacity, quality work over 10 to 12 hours just isn't possible.
No.
Some people will have a higher limit, some people have a lower limit. That's okay. Like, you've got to adjust and adapt to what works for you. But to say that you can produce world-class work 10 to 12 hours, that's probably like not 1%
Yeah.
of the population. And even like, you look at someone like, let's say Elon Musk, that guy still gets 7 hours sleep a night.
Yeah,
he still gets 7 hours sleep a night. Yeah, he's working bloody hard and he doesn't really do much outside of what he's doing, but he still does do that. And he's in that 0.1% of people that operate in that space where they can have insane production capacities. So I think 100%. It's passing on that message where, like, we're not saying be lazy. There's a difference between taking downtime and strategically disengaging and just being lazy because of whether that's procrastination, you don't really want it. You say you want to build a successful coaching business and help as many people as you can, when actually you don't really mean that. You don't really want that. I think that's another thing, is people kidding themselves as to what they really want. But nobody will make the time to strategically take that step back and go, is this the right path? Does this fire me up? Am I moving in the right direction? Am I starting to figure out an idea? Or are they just stumbling along and kind of just going through the motions, And I think that's something that's really underrated.
Yeah, I think the easiest thing to do for coaches to relate to is, I'm like, dude, relate to your clients. What do you need them to do? I'm like, you need them to track their calories, focus on total protein intake, work out 3 to 4 hours a week, and do some steps. That's literally it. If they adhere to those 3 things and they nail those 3 things, and then all you do is like, oh, maybe let's go to bed a little bit earlier, look at your sleep a little bit more and get things like that, they will get good results. And that's doing literally 5 things max. You only get to do 3 big things. So I'm like, why do you think that your to-do list has got 10 things on it? And why do you think you need to work 12 hours a day? Like, you don't go to the gym 12 hours a day to get good results. Why do you need to sit behind a laptop and do 12 hours of work to get good results? Like, it's all equivalent.
True genius is taking complex ideas and making them dead simple, in my humble opinion. I think that's true genius.
That's literally what Elon Musk does, right? He's just like, well, the world has a problem, right? So we're going to run out of fuel. So I'm just going to make electric cars. And then potentially we've destroyed the earth. So I'm just going to try and populate another planet. Like, that's like, if you break it down, it's a pretty simple concept, right? The science behind it's a little bit hard, but actually everything is broke down simple. I always think, like, the car tire is still round. It's been round since we had to roll stones to build a pyramid. It's been round since we had to have horse and cart. I'm like, don't try and fix something that's not broken. I'm like, that's literally it. I'm like, guys, how do you get in good shape? Work out, look after your calories, be consistent, train hard. This applies to you and your working and like your self-development, everything like that. That's it. Just focus on a few key areas and just get better at that.
It's exactly the same with your mental performance. It's like, if you was going to, you've now sent me on a thought process, like, if you're going to squeeze that down to the basics, what is it? I think the basics would be do the deeper work on the biggest insecurities and fears. And and go into the work that you've done in a moment, but it is isolating what is the biggest fears, the insecurities, the anger, the doubt, the sadness, the insecurity, the imposter syndrome, the comparison syndrome. What is that about? So number one, I think, is doing this deep work and exploring that with a mental performance coach, with a therapist, and going there and going, Jesus, what's that about? I think number two is, I call journaling as steps to the mind. That's what I see as journaling. And if you want to get your steps into the mind, you need to be writing this stuff down, whether that's a brain dump, whether that's things that you're grateful for every day, but those very, very simple things at the end of the day and the beginning of the day, journaling is steps to the mind. So it's getting those in. And I think the third is building a support network around you. Like that, the TMP network that we're building now with the Mindset Academy it's really awesome. Like, somebody will post in the group, I'm feeling loads of anxiety around check-ins. It always comes up, I want to know if I'm alone. And they'll get 7 people and they go, you're not alone. Actually, this is how I've overcome that. This is what I realized this was from. So I think they're the 3 things. If you're going to boil down mental performance at an elite level, it's doing the deep work on your deepest fears and insecurities. Journaling is steps for the mind. Number three is having a support network of people around you that care about you. They want you to do well. They support you when you're feeling low, when you're having a tough day, and that's it. So it is taking those complex, because we can talk about the deeper psychological models. We can talk about all the different types of journaling, whether it's qualitative, quantitative. We can talk about different friendship networks, support network, business network. But actually, like when you simplify it, there's not as much to it than you think. And I think that is true genius, not just in coaching, but just in general.
Yeah. And do you believe in fear?
Do I believe in fear?
Yeah.
Define what? Well, let's start with the definition. What's your definition of fear?
So I never really, I wouldn't know like the definite, like, so when people are like, oh, I'm scared of, maybe like, I don't know, like say for example, people are scared of snakes and spiders, right? But I'm like, but you don't know, you've never even touched one, and things like that. Or I'm scared of failure and I'm scared of this. I'm like, but have you actually failed? I always think like fear is one of those things where I'm like, you're scared of the what if sort of thing. So I'm like, people are scared of something before it's actually happened. So it's like, oh, I'm afraid to go fully online because what about if it fails? I'm like, yeah, but what about if it doesn't? And things like that. So that's kind of I don't know if that helps. I wouldn't know the kind of definition of fear, but like, that's how I see it. I'm like, because I'm like, oh, I'm not scared of spiders. I don't like spiders, but I'm not scared of them because I've never really put a tarantula in my hand. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I understand. So here's the thing. We live in a world of abundance, and most of our problems are abundance problems. If we're being brutally honest, like that's the reality. So I think we can put fear into different buckets. One bucket of fear is, and it's going to sound a bit intense, but this is like you're in the street and somebody pulls out a pistol or a knife, or you're in the jungle and a tiger comes out. That's one type of fear. And I believe that's very real.
Yeah,
I believe that's very real.
100%. Yeah,
that's set up.
Do you think that's like kind of so I've listened to kind of the chimp stuff lately. So there's a psychologist that goes on about the chimp.
Stephen Peters. I actually have funny insight. I actually have my chimp. His name was Terence. He's evolved into Caesar, and he's tattooed on my shoulder. In fact, you've seen him. I think you've met him.
Yeah. But that's the thing, isn't it? Because is that kind of the chimp fear? Because that's like fight or flight, right? Like, what if someone draws a pistol out? Because people would react differently. Someone might fight it, go straight for it, or someone might be like, whoa, or vice versa. Maybe like no one's going to fight a lion in the jungle, but like, but that kind of concept. So do you think that's kind of the two different mindsets that one would kick in at a certain time?
Yeah, so the model that you're referencing is, for everybody that's listening, is the Chimp Paradox by Professor Stephen Peters. And he basically has this mind management model, which is very simple, but it's awesome, which is the Chimp Paradox. So we have three key parts of the mind. We have the chimp, which lives in the jungle. It operates on fear, emotion. It's the thing that wants to fight. It's the thing that wants to fuck. It's the thing that wants to completely blow out your diet and eat all the cookies because screw you, emotions. And then you've got the human. And then the human is the part of us that lives in a society. It's facts, it's figures, it's laws, it's the logical thinking. And then we have the computer. And the computer is where all of our subconscious code is written. And in terms of processing power and speed, the computer is the fastest, so your subconscious mind. Then you have the chimp. A chimp is 3 times as strong as fast as a human being. Then you have the human. So when we get inputs and stimulus in from our environment, what will happen is, if it's triggering enough, our chimp will basically push our human out of the way. It will listen to the computer from the line of code that's written, and it will run an emotion. So fear, for example, could be the emotion that's being run. In fact, I mean, let's talk about that anxiety that was written into your subconscious code. So just run me through, before we started working together, how was that anxiety manifesting? Like how did you know you had it? Where did you feel it in your body? What was how did you know, oh, okay, I need to go and work on this?
So initially I had it like probably for probably longer. I think I can't remember when we said, like, when I moved to London is when we kind of diagnosed it. So I think it was potentially like 3 or 4 years before I even spoke to you about this. And I remember having a panic attack, and I didn't believe in it at all. I remember having a panic attack at night, waking up, and I know that my heart rate used to elevate all the time, and I felt like I had this thing where this happened to me on the gym floor. Like the last kind of 6 months while on the gym floor, I felt like I had to run away. I felt like I was always rushing to something, and I felt like I had to escape the whole time. And probably, if you had a heart rate monitor, my heart rate was probably it's probably 80 plus, like every day. Who knows? I probably took 10 years off my life having it. Who knows? Um, but it felt like a stone in like kind of in my gut. Felt like I was like that sickly feeling the whole time, and I felt like my chest was upper chest felt a bit tight, and I don't know. It just got to the stage where I was like, this isn't, and I think this is after the lockdowns and things like this, where a lot more mental health started to come out, and I probably realized more that, man, I need to talk to someone about this, and I just need to know. I thought you could fix it initially until you said we can't fix it. I was like, oh, okay, cool. There's the answer that I needed, sort of thing. I just needed to talk to someone, man, because I think I've spent a long time in my own thoughts and never really had anyone to talk to. And I think that's the good thing that you've done with the Facebook group and the community that you're building now is that people are talking about this stuff a lot more, like a lot more. And it's good to know. Like it's good because we've all felt like it. And maybe you feel a bit weak and a bit like, maybe I shouldn't feel like this. Like everyone else feels like they're succeeding. And, like everyone's signing up all these clients and they're doing so well because they're in this little group and they're traveling the world and they've moved abroad and I'm just here sort of thing. And that was kind of it, really. I felt like I was in that situation. I was like, I just need to fucking talk to someone.
And think about when that anxiety came up. Think back to a specific moment. And what was it that you believed about yourself as a person to be true in that moment? And begin that sentence with I am or I'm not. What was the belief going on?
I wasn't good enough. I wasn't good enough. I was what's the word where I was like I wasn't Brandon. I was someone else. I was trying to be all these different characters to try and build this business and to try and build this thing that I thought is what I wanted, sort of thing up here. And I was just being pushed down at the bottom. And I wasn't me. I wasn't me. I wasn't even like, I remember coaching on the gym floor and things. I wasn't even coaching my style of training and things like that. And I'm like, what am I doing? And I found myself trying to just disconnect completely who I was. So I would just say I wasn't secure in who I was.
And that's hard, particularly as an athlete, because as athletes, and you kind of carry that mindset around with you. And the same with coaches, which is I have to be the leader. I'm there in charge. I'm coaching people. I'm helping people, and it can be hard to number one accept that and to take the pressure off for anyone who's listening. I might be coming to this realization right now. We all feel afraid of not being good enough, of not being worthy, of not being lovable, but it just manifests itself in lots of different ways. What did you realize was the root cause of that?
Um, I think when we did that visualization session, and I think it was like 45 minutes, right? And I just sat and you just spoke and we produced that timeline. And when it went back, there was a certain period. It was when I moved to London because I could picture it now. And it was when I moved to London and it was a big milestone to move to London when I was like 21 or something like that. Start PTing there. And again, like 21 years old, trying to morph into this London life and this London kid and this London personal trainer where I felt like I had to be this trainer, this coach to fit in and to build a business. And that was it really. And that again, like that's how we moved across the world, right? Let's get well away from London sort of thing. But yeah, that was that trigger point for me for sure.
And what do you realize now no longer needs to be true now that you let that go? That anxiety, that understanding of where that comes from.
Say it again.
What do you realize now? What do you realize now to be true that you gone backwards and looked at that anxiety and where it comes from and those limiting beliefs that were there, what do you realize that it's just not true anymore? It just doesn't operate.
Yeah, I feel a bit sad, to be honest, sometimes, because I'm like, the whole time I was in a great city, I was like, I let it go almost because I wasn't me. And I feel like, oh, if I was me, I would have almost sort of potentially got 2 years of my life back, sort of thing. And I potentially could have been far more successful, if you want to put it in quotation marks, than I was. Um, so, but I don't regret it either. I don't regret it because it's allowed me now to be probably the most grounded I've ever been in my life at 26 years old. And I don't think many 20-year-olds can even say that at all. So it's been a blessing in disguise.
100%. And that's a great reframe, because let's put it this way. If you hadn't have made that shift, you could have spent the rest of your life not figuring out who you are and what it is that you represent and what you stand for. And you could still be here right now. And that could have been going on and on and on. And, I work with clients in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, and they still didn't do the work. And then they were like, oh, finally, I'd known that then. So you're actually ahead of schedule, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's it. And then that comes that thing, doesn't it? Like, well, what schedule are you on, man? Like, who cares, right? It's like, it's like, oh, I need to achieve this number by this, and I need to have kids by this number. Like, who's writing these fucking books? Like, who's saying this sort of stuff? Like, I think now we live in a world where I'm like, guys, we can do anything. Like, probably when we get to 60, they're like, oh, actually, guess what? We've got this pill and we can live for another 20 years. I'm like, oh, fucking hell, what was I rushing for all that time? I've got another 20 years now. Do you know what I mean? So try not to live by this scale. And I think, like, again, comes down to the environment that you always talk about. And I think the best thing is like building that boardroom, right? And this is a really good one, like building the boardroom. Like, if you're a business owner, you need to have a marketer and all this sort of stuff. So you have a team or something, like, but who's your team? Who's in your network? And start to bring those people in. So, like, I know day or night, like, I could probably pick up the phone and things like that, and I could message you because I'm struggling and things like that. And there's certain people that I have in my life that will be like, that's it. Like, they'll kick me in the butt and be like, bro, you need to sort your shit out. Or I can go to my mum, who's very caring, very supportive, vice versa. Who's in your team? Who's in your boardroom?
So here's a question. What's your biggest fear?
My fear is a funny one. My fear is being in the same position as I am now in 6 months' time. I know from my personality it's impossible, because I live by that one step forward every day. So it is impossible. But my biggest fear is to kind of be in that same position. So, like, if you can relate it back to my anxiety and kind of like the insecurities that I had, like, God, like, if you have that now, please don't have that in 6 months' time. Please don't have that in 6 months' time. You will, because you're not going to be able to get rid of it, but please start talking to someone about it. Please get on top of it. Because it comes down to anything. You can relate it to health and fitness. I'm like, no one's going to do it for you. No one's going to go and lose body fat for you and build muscle for you. So I'm like, guys, go sort your head out, because I promise you, it is the best thing you'll ever do in your life. And like, I remember walking back from yours after that meditation session with like heavy feet. And generally, guys, like, even talking about it now is quite emotional. Like, I generally was like, there was moments where I was just like, I was tearing up, because I was like, it's finally fucking sorted, sort of thing. And it was crazy.
So that's one thing. A coach asked me the other day, what gift do people take away from doing the deeper work with us? And I said, and I'd like you to feed back and see whether I'm accurate or not. And don't just agree because we're on a podcast. But the thing that I said was, when somebody goes through our foundations phase, they will never look at themselves the same again. They'll never look at themselves the same. They will have a different perspective on why they are like they are, why they tick, how they tick. Because it's only when you look inwards and you kind of connect the dots looking backwards, as Steve Jobs said. That's really where I think the most profound and powerful shifts and changes are.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. I fully agree. And I think the greatest thing is that I remember Simon said this about you. It was really good. He was like, dude, he just holds a mirror up and you have to stare at yourself. And it was like a great thing. It was like, thing is that the nicest thing is that no one ever will ask the questions that you did. It was like some of the questions you asked, I was like, oh, fucking hell, right? Like it goes down to your parenting and things like that. And no one's going to ask you those questions. No one's going to ask you those questions. And you look at your whole life and you never really like, I'll always go that meditation session. Like I've never backtracked. I've never sat for 45 minutes. You never will unless someone gets you to do it. Like who's going to do that? And asks you these deep questions. And then you start answering them and you're honest about them. So like you'll come out of every conversation, every whatever it is, cool, whatever it is. And you will, again, like you'll look at yourself in 6 months' time and you will be a completely different human being. Like the way that you think, act on a day-to-day basis.
That's awesome, mate. That's really cool. So, final question. To get us as a team, as a service, as a company, as a community, but what does the phrase total mental performance mean to you?
It's kind of like, I think now, like it's three big words, right? Like, especially like total, a whole. And like everyone, I think, coming from an athlete and still aspiring athlete, is that you want to be the most. Every coach listening to this, or anyone that listens, wants to be that perfect. And when you can perform to a perfect level, it's an outstanding feeling. And I think those three words alone are extremely powerful. Like if you yelled them, you're going to turn heads, sort of thing. And I think, yeah, I've never really thought about it. It's a good question, man. It is a good question. Like, I think it's just three really strong words, and it sums up what you do as well. Because I think people, when they think about it, they're like, oh, is it counseling? Is it life? It's like, it's not even any of that. It's not. It's generally not. It's got nothing to do with sometimes the Tony Robinsons, like, yeah, we all love each other, hug each other. I'm like, that's cool, but it's not like that at all. And it's not really counseling because you're not broken. You're not this broken tool. You just want to perform better and you just want to be a little bit better than you are now. And I think that's what you start to unlock. And you give people the permission to start, you give them the keys to multiple doors, pretty much.
And if you was to say, if you had total mental performance, how would you know?
Oh, mate, we'd be fucking. Do you know what? I know now because I do. If I'm honest, I live my life extremely grateful, humble, calm, present. Am I satisfied? No, but I'm proud of where we are right now. But I have full control of my life. It's as simple as emotionally, everything. Yeah.
And thank you so much for coming on, mate.
It's cool. Thank you. No, honestly, man, it's like, no, it's crazy. But like, yeah, like generally anyone that fucking listens to this, like, but you'll say it like, you're not like, it's like, you're not like this a fairy that like, I guess coaches like, oh, I've got this fairy dust to build muscle and drop body fat, right? And the people think we do, but I'm like, and you don't do that, but you fucking know what you're doing. Sort of thing. It's as simple as, but you just ask the right questions and you unlock some incredible doors. And dude, I couldn't be more thankful, honestly. Like, it's crazy. And the most amazing things, it wasn't even long. What did we do? 4 to 6 weeks?
Yeah, we did the 6-week foundation phase.
Yeah. And I was like, yeah, shit. Like, it was crazy.
Dude, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on. And we're going to catch up very, very, very soon. All the best, mate.
Thanks, bud.